This is the Ducati Panigale V4R. It's got a 1000cc V4 engine. It's got a fancy single-sided swing arm. It's got all kinds of electronic goodies, traction control, an IMU, launch control, cornering ABS, you name it, this thing's got it. And best of all, it's got wings up front. This is the pinnacle of Ducati sport bikes, minus the Superleggera, of course. But it also cost $40,000, making this one of, if not the, most expensive sport bike on the market today. Again, minus the Superleggera and special motorcycles like that. That's a lot of coin for a motorcycle. But if you come over here, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you've got this, the Suzuki GSX-R1000R at just a tick under $18,000. It's one of the least expensive motorcycles in the category, and in fact, all the Japanese motorcycles have something in the $15,000 to $18,000 ballpark. What I want to know is what makes this guy over here $22,000 better than this guy over here. So what we've done, we've taken both of these bikes to the racetrack, to Buttonwillow Raceway, to join our friends at Pacific Track Time to rip both of these around on the racetrack. We put myself, we put the video guy Sean, who's behind the camera right now, even put our special friend Fabrice Valder, really fast dude on both bikes, to get an idea what both these bikes can do on the street and the racetrack, to really see what makes this $22,000 delta. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about the Suzuki some more. A 1000cc engine, just like the Ducati Panigale. On the dyno, interestingly enough, Ducati, 186 horses to their back tire. Suzuki, 162 horses to the back tire. That's a pretty big discrepancy, and you might be surprised at both of those numbers because both manufacturers claim a whole lot more. Again, these are numbers to the back tire of both bikes, and both these bikes, to meet US regulations, are in one way or another restricted. That's why you see all kinds of videos and stories and things about Japanese motorcycles getting a flashed ECU and getting darn close to 200 horsepower to the back tire. This Suzuki is no different. You can go on YouTube, type in Gixxer 1000 reflash, and you'll see these things pumping out 190 whatever horsepower to the wheel. The super interesting thing about the Gixxer here is it actually makes more power than the Ducati, power and torque than the Ducati, all the way until 11,000 RPM, until that's when the Ducati takes over and makes significantly more power up until it's 14.5 redline. In 6th gear, it'll actually redline in 16.5. Nonetheless, you've really got to wring out this Ducati to get that power advantage. Otherwise, almost everywhere else in the power band, the Suzuki actually makes more power. And of course, in the real world, that big spread of power and torque everywhere until 11 grand is a lot more user-friendly than what the Ducati offers. Part of the credit to that goes to the variable valve timing that the Suzuki has. So that takes care of the engine side of things. The Suzuki is actually a really impressive motor, and I'm sure with the flash, it could really give this Ducati a run for its money. But let's look at some other components. You've got the Showa BFF fork. It's your best friend forever. Actually, it stands for balance-free front fork. This is a really top-shelf piece of kit. Of course, the Ducati has the Öhlins front end, which, you can't go wrong with that. Moving down here, you've got, moving down literally, Brembo brakes, not quite the same level of stopping power as the Ducati with the Stylema calipers in 330mm disc. This is a 320 on the Suzuki. It's a one-piece monoblock caliper, but it's still not the Stylema level of quality. So the cool thing about the Suzuki's rotors here are the T-button carriers on the rotor themselves. They allow the rotor to be more free-floating as you're rolling down the road, so they can center better once the caliper engages. Other cool things about the Suzuki braking, you got steel-braided lines direct from the factory for an $18,000 motorcycle. That's pretty cool. Nissan master cylinder, not nearly as, I'll just say it, not nearly as good as the Brembo piece on the Ducati, but not bad. Other cool things, you've got an IMU, traction control, cornering ABS, launch control, all the electronics you can dream of with the Suzuki and the Ducati. You're pretty much getting a similar level of electronic goodies there. Quick shifter up and down on both, gotta love that. It's definitely a godsend. On paper, the specs of the Suzuki pretty much line up with the specs of the Ducati. I know that sounds crazy, but this is a really impressive package. So where does that $22,000 delta come from? Well, the answer to that really shines through on the racetrack. And the best way I can describe it is the Ducati feels like a scalpel, whereas the Suzuki is like a butter knife in comparison. This Ducati, you can just ride it with pinpoint accuracy, whereas in comparison, the Suzuki, you can kind of just put it in a general vicinity. Now I know that sounds kind of amazing to say, especially because I made sure to ride the Suzuki first on track, and it's good. It's a really good motorcycle. Put it wherever I wanted to. The power is fantastic. Coming out of corners, it just makes a lot of power down low. It's really good, crisp fueling. But then I hop on the Ducati, it's a whole new ball game. Pinpoint accuracy. You can adjust the suspension exactly to tailor the needs of the racetrack. Put it exactly where you want it, and of course there's just that power. It sounds amazing, and when you get on it, hang on for dear life because you're gonna rocket forward at an extreme rate. The braking, you've got top shelf quality components. The Brembo pretty much top to bottom on the Ducati. Pretty darn good on the Suzuki. It's a few ticks better on the Ducati, and that's kind of a theme you feel everywhere between the two of them. Suzuki, really good everywhere, but the Ducati, a few ticks better. Handling-wise, power-wise, braking-wise. The area where I think both bikes really excelled, and I really couldn't split hairs between the two, are the electronics. I mean, the TC on both come in pretty much, it's hard to tell when they come in. Other than a light on the dash, I couldn't tell the difference. But that's really where I thought the Suzuki held its own, was in the electronics area. And if you didn't have the Ducati to ride side by side with it, you'd think this thing is a fantastic motorcycle, and it is. The question there becomes $22,000 better? Where is all that coming from? And sure, I guess a lot of R&D development time and work goes into making this Ducati what it is, as far as making it a pinpoint accurate motorcycle, but I still don't see it being a $22,000 better bike than the Suzuki. So what are you getting for that price delta? I mean, in the case of the Ducati, you are getting a piece of panache, some status. You're buying into a cult, maybe, let's say. There's the status symbol of owning something as sexy as this, because I mean, come on, it's a good looking bike, right? And if you don't care about such things, that Suzuki is really great. And it's sprung a whole lot softer than this Ducati, so if you are going to go on the street, besides roasting your balls off, this Ducati is sprung stiff, and it's going to jar you around a lot too. Give me $22,000 and I can make this Suzuki a really ripping, fast, accurate, precise screamer of a motorcycle. Then we take everything to the street, because after all, these are street bikes. Both bikes do have lights, plates, blinkers, all that good stuff, and the ball game completely changes. I absolutely love this Suzuki on the street. It's comfortable. It's comfortable. I gotta say it again. This Ducati, I think my thighs are roasted to a nice medium rare at this point. It is so hot, and I don't mean that in a good way. It roasts my thighs. I had to check, just riding here on the freeway, I thought I had enough airflow to get this thing nice and cool. I had to look down several times to make sure nothing was on fire. And that's not a joke. I really had to look down to make sure nothing was on fire underneath me, because that's how hot this thing was between my legs. It was uncomfortable, and that's putting it mildly. The Suzuki, meanwhile, nice plush seat, comfortable bars. The bars are a bit narrow and folded in. I did like that better on the Ducati. It's a wider stance, which I like, but that's easy enough to change. And this Suzuki is not going to roast my thighs. Excellent. Again, on the street, the Suzuki is gold. I mean, it's comfortable. That spread of power, like I said, below 11,000 RPM, this Suzuki makes more power than the Ducati. And it feels great on the road. It comes out of corners great. You can loaf down the freeway in supreme comfort as far as sport bikes are concerned anyway. This truly is a great motorcycle for street bombing. Yeah, if I were to pick a track bike, obviously I'd pick the Ducati. And again, I don't have $40,000 to spend. So, with that delta, I could make the Suzuki really darn good. And so that's kind of where that price difference really shines, is if you ride the two back to back, you see how much more precise this Ducati is, but you really got to work for it. You got to wring its nuts off to make it shine. And if you've got the cash, that's great. Otherwise, for under 18 grand, I mean, shoot, what a really good motorcycle this Suzuki is. Obviously, can't go wrong with either one if you have the cash, but if you are cash strapped, don't poo-poo the Suzuki because it's not nearly as much as the Ducati. You can make these things really, really good. That's it from me for now. Noticing the differences between the Suzuki GSX-R1000R and the Ducati Panigale V4R. Again, this Suzuki just represents the lower tier of the price category, whereas the Ducati represents the upper tier of the price category. And really what you're getting for that huge price delta, whew, you're getting a more precise, more powerful bike, but damn, you're gonna pay paying for it, that's for sure. Anyway, read the rest of my thoughts on Motorcycle.com, and until next time, see you later.